What's going on, people? It's Mr. Do Daily back again with the latest episode of DoreOnTour, Dialing with Des. Your opportunity to come on, talk about the weekend's game. Of course, Forest got a crucial point at Everton. Much improved from the performance at Newcastle. Really good to see him taking the game to a team that we're expected to be in that group with. So if you've got anything to talk about that, or amongst other subjects, Niakarte's injury, Brennan's finish, Morgan Gibbs-White and the cameo, of course he come on and played his part, or anything related to Nottingham Forest, please dial in now, come on to the show. Be chuffed to have you. We can discuss whatever's on your mind. Chance to get involved, hear your views, and of course, be part of DoreOnTour. The man himself takes a day off on a Monday. Of course, this is the third week I've been doing this. It's great to have people tuning in. And of course, we all love talking about Forest so much in the last 12 months, from Stoke away, which Dore mentioned so much, to Everton away and being disappointed with just a 1-1. Coming out of that game, it was quite tough to take in the end. I'll come on to that shortly, tell you my thoughts of the game, of course. Hit that link. Do get involved if you can. It'd be great to have you on board and to discuss, like I say, what's on your mind. Of course, the usual things before we start. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. That would be absolutely fantastic. Dore is trying to get the channel up to 10,000 viewers. And if we can do that this season whilst we're in the Premier League, that would be absolutely amazing. Of course, hit the thumbs up for this episode. Get behind this show. Really love doing it. Really enjoy it. And of course, so I don't get sacked in the morning, like we were singing to Frank Lampard before that equaliser, please give it a thumbs up. That'd be absolutely amazing too. I'd imagine there's a few people away watching the football, but as these things tend to happen, people are tuning in all the time. So if you've got any comments to add, what we're saying, what I'm saying, what the people who are going to come in and talk about are saying, that would be absolutely fantastic. Drop your comments in. I'll try and read through as many as possible. Already there's lots coming in, so I'll get through as many of those as possible. A few people on. I'm sure Dore will be posting up that link as well, wherever he can, to encourage people to join in. And that's all it's about on a Monday. It's an opportunity for more than the usual guests to get in and hear their views. Of course, as well, if you do enjoy the channel, there's always an opportunity to support it. You could always become a member, £2.99 a month. Lots of people do that. It just helps Dore progress things and be able to do different things with it. And of course, there is a super chat if you want to make a donation that way. One final thing before we get into all the football talk. I've got my own YouTube channel, Do Daily. It's different, it's a bit of a hard sell at times. So if you could get over and subscribe to that, all I do is talk about sort of trying to be positive and trying to attack things in the right frame of mind, just my daily experiences, football. I do a bit of running and encouragement just to get people feeling good about what they're doing, just seeing somebody normal doing normal things. I'm about 4 away from 700. It's a slow burner, that one, but if you could get over and subscribe, please hit that as soon as this episode's finished. So without sort of going on about that too much, getting into these initial comments, some of the usual people are in. Ant says evening. Lee as well, evening guys. Eve's tuned in. Evening, Eve. I'm okay. Hope you're all well. And enjoyed watching Forest at the weekend. Hope you've enjoyed catching up on it too. Glenn says good morning from Geelong in Australia. Wow, that's a long way for somebody to be viewing. Paul says Dore is giving you the graveyard slot here. Des up against Man U Liverpool on Sky. Bring it on. Bring it on. It'll be far more exciting than that, I can assure you. I'm not sure, but there you go. Chapo says, help Des and Reds. Help Chapo. What's the situation with Gardner? I'm sure that might be something we get onto. What's this one here? Russell says, out of all the European Cup winners, we're currently the highest ranked in the league. Absolutely. That relegation battle, who wants to watch that this early in the season? Just get you depressed. And on Do Daily, I always talk about Monday motivation. Get on here and have some positivity. Mark says, good evening. Matt says, subbing to your channel. Cheers for that, Matt. Really, really appreciate it. Ian says, evening, Des. Again, more coming in. Warren, regular viewer, evening Des, evening Warren. So there you go, just a few people checking in. You know, I'll run through the comments as we go. Again, another one there from Darth Brexit, evening. People checking in all the time. If you've got anything to come on and talk about, there's lots of things at the moment, isn't there? We can analyse the performance from Everton. There's lots of talk about Joe Worrell. You know, again, we won't skirt around some of the subjects. It's your opinions, your views, and I'll give you my honest views and my opinion too. Some guy popping in there saying hit the like and subscribe. I'm not sure who he is. I've probably seen him about once or twice. And Joe says evening. So with that sort of going on, Everton at the weekend, first time I've ever been. Really, really enjoyed it. Cracking game, sort of. Everton had spells where they was on top. We came into it. You know, we got a foothold in the game. I personally thought Mangala took control of the game. He got done by Iwobi in about the 10th minute. Looped the ball over his head. And after that, he never gave Iwobi a kick. And, of course, he went off injured. We saw the reintroduction of Ryan Yates. Looked sharp, looked fit, popping up in the box. And then, of course, the man himself, Morgan Gibbs-White, somebody I spoke about so much, been so excited about, come on and did a trick in front of me. I'm still a little bit confused what he did, to be honest. He did a step over and beat a man and he was gone, and he kind of confused us all. But absolutely brilliant. The link-up, personally, I thought when Morgan Gibbs-White on Forest looked like a far more exciting attacking threat. You know, from a, not laboured, it wasn't laboured at all, but from a direct build-up, where players playing neat little passes, seemed to bring Lingard into the game without Morgan going over the top on Morgan Gibbs-White. It was just bringing other players in. There was a lot more going on. And Kouyaté come on, and he looked a real beast in midfield. He's going to be an asset. So they're my sort of initial opinions. When we got the goal, I thought we was on top. I thought we conceded when we looked our most comfortable throughout the game. Of course, this is the Premier League. Any team can break you down, score at any time. The pace has really surprised me. You know, someone who watches a lot of Premier League football, I wasn't until this season and watching it live. It's really sort of taken me back how quick the game is. So teams can score at any minute, but at the one moment I thought Forest were looking comfortable. You know, we kind of had them on the rack a little bit. The crowd was getting frustrated with them. That long punt upfield, and we got a little bit caught, didn't we? I think Forest are growing into the Premier League. That's my sort of thoughts. I did a social media post saying, whilst we're not Premier League cohesive at the moment, we're not quite savvy enough to deal with it. I think we're growing into the league. I think we'll be fine ultimately, but there's still some tweaks to be made and perhaps one or two more players. So if you've got anything to say along those terms, please do let me know and make some comments about what you think if you can't come on. Just a couple of more comments before I get the first guest in. People are starting to queue up. That's absolutely fantastic. Mark says Mangala was immense most of the first half. Absolutely agree with that. How long are you here for tonight? As long as the guests and as long as people are talking to me. Darth says, very naive of us defending high so late in the game. Perhaps so. And again, there's been lots of talk about that, hasn't there? So without any sort of further ado, I'm going to get the first guest in. Just get rid of that comment. And it's Paul.
Good evening.
Right.
Good evening to you, sir. Liking your show. You and Mr. Dore really enjoy it. So good to be on.
We're trying to put something out a little bit different on a Monday, and it gets us all talking about the game. So gets people involved. What's your thoughts tonight, mate?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I've supported Forest for a long time. I supported Forest. I was a bit too young for the European Cup winning days, but I supported Forest when we had Cloughie and we had, Neil Webb, Nigel Clough, all through that. Then the Frank Cart days. But I went to Forest against West Ham, first game of the season. It's just another level. The last 12 to 18 months, the atmosphere at Forest, the feeling at Forest, it's immense. It's absolutely immense. And I mean, we played well against West Ham. We deserved to win. The players that we've brought in, really shrewd acquisitions. I really like Mangala. I think he's a great player. Nico Williams is an upgrade to Spence, I believe. Near Cartier as well. And we've still got players that have got to come in as well. I mean, we saw a cameo of Gibbs-White against Everton. He looked a class player. And then we've got this Foiler as well, who's supposed to be a special player as well. So
that's one of the lot, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it just looks so promising. It's great to be a Forest fan because some of the stuff that we've had to endure over the years. Some of the dross that we've had to watch and such like that. But the last 18 months, it's just been immense.
Well, I totally agree, mate. And we're probably of a similar age then, because I started watching football. I've had a season ticket since 1989, and so I watched the early 90s and the mid 90s and those great teams, and it's just incredible, isn't it? I said last week, the West Ham game, 20 minutes before kickoff, the excitement was incredible. It was palpable. You could feel it. I've never seen anything like that, and it's how good is it to be at the City Ground? I went through years of going to away games because they was excited. They was the fun bit. They was the day out, and the City Ground almost became a bit of a chore. I've always loved it, but it almost became a bit like, oh, well, we've got Stoke at home again, that kind of thing. And now you go to a game, and I've said it to friends today in a WhatsApp group. I've said, seriously, and excuse the pun, but I just can't get enough of the Premier League because it's so exciting. I can't stop watching different games on the television.
I think what you alluded to at the start, Des, was when you were saying, which surprised me as well, because I've been so ensconced in the Championship for the last many years and such. You sort of watch the Premier League, but when you see it up close, you realise how quick it is, how good these players are and such. So it's going to be a ride, But the thing is what's strange. I know social media is, just part of the fan base, but it's amazing is when Forest got promoted, it was very much, it's great to have Forest in the league. And all of a sudden, Forest starts spending money, and it's a case of, hang on a minute, why are they doing this? Did they want us to just roll over and tickle a belly? I mean, from my point of view, I've been a critic in the since the when the Greeks took over initially, because there wasn't a structure. But fair play to Marinakis. He supported Cooper unbelievably. And we're not going to die wandering, are we? So at the end of the day, we're going to give it a good shot this season, and I'm just loving it.
Absolutely. And I'm a bit like yourself on that. At times I have been critical. I couldn't see what was going to happen. Yeah. But right now, he seems to be keeping to his word. Just on that note, obviously, we've signed all these players, and I'm sure we're going to discuss the media attention at various points. But of those players, I've made it quite clear which one was my favourite. If you tuned into this before, Morgan Gibbs-White, of course, I wanted him all summer. Which one is it that kind of does it for you? Which one are you really looking forward to seeing against Tottenham on Sunday?
Morgan Gibbs-White. I think, and I think the main reason behind it is that is who Steve Cooper really wanted. So that's it. At the end of the day, there's lots of speculation, rumour, who's acquired all these particular players. But the chairman the owner has backed him and supported him and said, you want Morgan Gibbs-White, we're going to spend this money. And then again, all these people are basically saying, okay, it's 42 million and such like that. But it's a 25 million down payment on a young, English, exciting player. If he gets to 42 million, then that's great, because that means that he's hit all and achieved all them particular goals, and Forest are doing well.
Exactly. So, yeah. And I touched on before in the Everton game, whilst he did one or two fantastic things, it was the way that Forest just looked a far more dangerous attacking outfit when he was on the pitch. I see him going straight in. I don't know, of course, but I see him going straight into the team on Sunday and being, like I said, with Lingard and perhaps Dennis getting some minutes.
Of course, I forgot about him. Yeah, exactly.
Foyer on the bench. We can't fault what business have done. And like you say, whatever the rumours suggest, what I find really interesting right now, or what I took from the West Ham game in particular, was the way they bought into Cooper. We know what Cooper is. We know his man management and the way he deals with people and his system and his beliefs, but it was the way they kind of bought into him. And another thing I kind of mentioned through social media this weekend was how, whilst it's not quite cohesive, it's not fully joined, and we can't put in that perfect performance just yet. Playing well, but they're fighting like lions for the team. And these players the media are saying they're not going to gel. Already you're seeing great team spirit. You know, even through the social media, and I know it doesn't matter what's done on social media, it matters on the football pitch. But I saw a comment for Brennan Johnson said something about his goal, and then you've got a list of players, including last season's loanees, all sort of commenting in, and you know,
and Steve Cook came out and said, didn't he, today, that basically the team spirit seems better than last season already.
Well, absolutely, and it just seems that they're fighting for it. They're having to fight really hard. It's another level. They're struggling at times. You know, Everton are not going to be outside that bottom five for me. They've got no striker. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin wasn't playing, but they've got no strikers on the pitch. They're really struggling. The crowd know that they're in a bad place. But Everton dominated for us.
Damari Gray played well, didn't he? Played well. Gray played well.
I think he was a little bit wound up by the Forest fans as well. We was right in the corner, and they gave him some stick and he was giving some back. So we'd have been pleased with that. But whilst they've got one or two players like that, they're going to struggle. But they did dominate Forest for periods. So I'm not taking anything away from how well we played in certain parts, but it's not perfect yet. And Cooper's admitted that himself. When he's asked about players, he always says, we need more. He's making no bones about it. He's not sugarcoating it. He's saying we need to be better. And I think that's so important because they're fighting hard for him, and it's so sort of obvious. It's easy to see on the eye. You've got sort of Lewis O'Brien, who I think has been brilliant.
He's been fantastic.
Technically, he's probably not the best footballer. Yeah. I don't want to discredit him in any way because he's done nothing to deserve that. But he works his socks off, and he does.
But at the end of the day, if he had like 10 assists and 10 goals, he'd be a £40 million player, wouldn't he? So, you know, I think what we got him at a snip, basically, because I think he was one of the best players in the Championship. I think the only concern I've got, and I'm sure he's going to get through it, is Joe. Joe, he's been done a couple of times in the few games that he's played in the first 10, 20 minutes where he's committed himself. But that's just probably getting up to the speed of the Premier League. I'm sure he's going to come through it and get better as the season goes on. That was the only concern from our side, really.
I know. For there's some of the things we can iron out in the next couple of games. Yeah. Well, maybe not the next couple of games, but the games after that, maybe.
I mean, Des, you've been a Forest fan for the same time as me. We always beat Tottenham. We'll do Tottenham.
We always beat Tottenham. And I'm sure somebody who I'll get on just a little bit later will be backing us 100%. But thanks for coming on, Paul. I really, really appreciate it. It's great to speak to someone of a similar age who gets it and has seen it the same way as me for many years.
Cheers. Keep up the good work, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Bye-bye.
Cheers to Paul for being the first guest. You know, absolutely brilliant to sort of get his views on it. Of course, we've all got a difference of opinion. You know, and everybody's invited to come on. I'm sure the guest queuing up will understand why I'm going to pop somebody in just now. On that note about beating Tottenham, we've got the man himself, Mr. Casey.
I like it, Des. I like it. And if you do, thank you. I'll tell you now, thank you very much. How you doing, mate?
Did you like the link there?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Well, thanks for coming on, mate. I really, really appreciate it. Of course, I asked Kev if he'd pop on tonight. We played Everton at the weekend, and he's got an interest in both camps. So, what was your thoughts on the game? Just before that, sorry, this guy saying, "What's he doing on?"
I don't even know who that is. That Door fella.
No idea. I'll get rid of him.
I don't know him on a Monday. Nobody knows him on a Monday. For me, it was. Obviously, I think Forest are still finding their feet, but I still think Forest played pretty well. Everton do lack a striker, so Everton can play pretty well and dominate up to virtually the last third, and then it kind of peters out. Seeing the business that Forest have done, and I think Steve Cooper and the Forest fans and everybody are starting to understand. You take the lead and you get your noses in front, you've got to bury the team.
Yeah.
So either you get the second or you make it so difficult for them to even try and penetrate you or whatever. You've just got to bank up. And Forest are going to learn that because, you know, even the worst teams in the Premier League have got quality. They can hurt you. And, you know, Goalkeeper, one ball over the top, Undanya, and Demarai Gray goes through and scores, and probably silence a few Forest fans. He was getting some terrible stick, wasn't he? But that's the great part about football. You can give stick, and he gets it back. So it was all good fun anyway. But I thought Forest with come Christmas time, after the World Cup and after Christmas, I think Forest will know how to see games out.
Yeah, I think that's important as well, because to be honest, Kev, I don't want to disrespect Everton, but I thought of the opponents we played, that was the one where we could have really sort of put a stamp on where we're at. And we've been talking about it already. It just doesn't seem to join up 100% of the minute. The critics are saying it's not going to, it's going to take a long time. I think it's happening a lot quicker than they give us credit for. We know how Cooper works with people. We know the instant impact he can have on people, and we've spoke about it personally. What his management type and how he gets into people and motivates them. It's so important. He came in this time last season, and we thought, we're going to have to give him 4 or 5 games. Turned it like that. So I think week on week we're seeing a massive improvement. We're seeing players sort of come in as well. The Morgan Gibbs-White came in this week. And I've said already tonight, I think the attacking intention when he was on the pitch was a lot more intense.
It went up a level. His cameo was very good, Des. You're right. He came when he done that drink down the left-hand side, didn't he? Where he's made somebody and then he's gone past the fullback, put a ball in the box, etc. But again, it's going to take a little bit of time because, look, the jigsaw isn't quite full yet. But you're going to get there. Listen, I want Forest to do well, obviously. I want Forest to stay in the league. I want Forest to be the surprise package. I really do. I know Fulham are doing great as well. And look, I just think it's going to take a little bit of time to gel, but Forest are learning fast. And you have to learn fast in this league, or else, you drop down the level, Des, and a team who you think you're going to get points off beat you. So you've got to try and maintain. But listen, I'm sure Steve Cooper knows what he's doing. He knows the quality now, and I truly believe Forest are going to have a good season. I really do.
I think it was important that Cooper mentioned after the game on Saturday. He said it was a much improved performance from Newcastle. We were, whilst we got penned in initially, we came through that tricky spell. We had opportunities of our own, real good opportunities. And I shared his opinion before I'd even heard what he said. I come out the game, whilst Everton did dominate in spells, I never felt like they was going to score. I said right at the start of the show.
And that's their problem, Des, yeah.
It almost felt like when we was at a safest point, they broke away and scored. So again, and that lasted for 89 minutes. We managed to keep them out. Don't get me wrong, they had some sort of good chances which they could have stuck away. But coming away from the game, you didn't feel like Forest was under too much pressure.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, games like that, like you said right at the start of your comments, you have to put them to bed, don't you?
Yeah.
And even right at the end, even after they scored, Yatesy had that chance which blazed over the bar, and you're not going to get too many of those, are you?
Real tough chance, though, Des. It's a real tough chance. Sliding in on the half volley. If that goes in, you guys go back to Nottingham, like floating, don't you? You go back flying, but that was
we're in the Mersey first, Kev.
You swim back. In
the Mersey.
Yeah, incredible. But again, I think this is all part of the finding your feet, all part of the adjustment that has to take place for Nottingham Forest. But listen, I was impressed with the way Forest went about their business, impressed with the way you pressed Everton in the end. I think you changed it a bit, adjusted, and you started to pressure the defenders a lot higher up the pitch. You trapped them a couple of times, high up the pitch, and had shots at goal. So again, this is all part of the learning. But the thing is, you switch off once in the Premier League, and the ball's in your back of your net, and you switched off really once, and that's when Demarai Gray got free and scored. So there's a little bit of learning to do, but I think Forest are learning quick.
Just one quick question I've got for you, Kev. I know you're a busy man. One player I did want to ask you about, because he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, in obviously with Morgan Gibbs White and Foyer and these big signings, is Kouyaté, the midfielder from Crystal Palace. I'm sure you've probably seen him play, possibly a lot more than we have. We've been focusing on Forest. He looks a real asset to me. He looks like almost
Tough.
like a quarterback, like the Cafu role.
Yeah, tough, strong, aggressive, fit. Listen, when the sunshine isn't there and you get the tough winter nights, that's the type of player you're going to need in the center of the pitch. You know, when you're going away from home and it's a tough battle, he's one of them who will stand up, can play center midfield, can play center half, and he can put it about as well, Des. And that's going to be something you need. You're going to need players in there who can put it about, because it's not always going to be about playing pretty football. It's going to be about putting your foot in. And Kouyaté, listen, I think the recruitment at Nottingham Forest has been nothing short of remarkable. But trust me, I think it's been incredible. And some of the players that you haven't even seen have a big role to play moving forward in the team.
Absolutely. I thought it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on him, because again, without doing too much, he kind of come on and he almost commanded space and and a presence. He was a real presence in there. And like you say, when it gets tough on those cold November
winter nights, he'll come up trumps.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, Kev. I really appreciate your support here and coming on and helping me try and build this thing on a Monday. It's been fantastic.
You're welcome, Des. And listen, everyone, press the like button. Thanks for joining, Des. Forget Mr. Dore on a Monday. Des is the man. Look after yourself and well done, Forest. And keep up the great work, Des.
I'm sure we'll hear you supporting from wherever you are on Sunday.
100%. Take good care, Des.
Cheers, Kev. Thank you.
Up the Reds!
The man himself, Dore's friend and fan of the channel, Mr. Kevin Campbell. Of course, he's an absolute legend. Some great points there about Forest. Really appreciate him taking the time to come on. It was brilliant that he did so and offer his opinion. Of course, he enjoys watching both teams. Played for us both. Really successful career. So it's great to get his insight into it as well. Just going to read a few comments before I get back into the order of the guest that's coming on. I'm sure they'll appreciate why I got Kevin there. There's a few comments coming in about Joe Worrell. I think this one's an interesting one. It made me think when somebody else mentioned this today. Joe Worrell is often a slow starter to a season. Crazy to see the negativity towards him. I tend to agree with that. Do you know, now it's been said, I'd not thought of it myself before I'd seen it. But Paul agrees as well. Couldn't agree more, Nick. Chapo says, chin up was Kane and Haaland next up. That's a bit of a frightening thought, isn't it? So, yeah. And Nick says, the Everton goal was their only clean attempt, as Kev says. It fell down in the final third. Absolutely. And that's just the way it is sometimes, isn't it? Just a comment here from Mark. Lampard has been at pains to stress he felt Everton deserved to win as they had 19 shots. Well, like we said, we know where we're at. We're kind of accepting that there's going to be tough games. I think Lampard's been telling himself a few lies for a long time. Probably tells himself he's a good manager as well. But there you go. We'll see where they are at the end of the season. Warren says, great comments from King Kev. Absolutely. And Darth says, nice one, Super Kev. So getting the next guest in, Chris has been waiting patiently. Good evening, Chris. Thank you.
Hey, Judale. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. Just remind everybody where you're tuning in from.
New Jersey, USA.
New Jersey. And thank you for waiting. Like I said, I'm sure
you're welcome.
Putting Kev on. I did ask him to come on especially. But what's been your sort of initial thoughts on the first couple of games, watching from afar and seeing it all develop in the Premier League?
I think you ain't seen nothing yet, really. I mean, you hit on it a moment ago. You're saying it's not even really cohesive yet. We brought on all these players. I really like the recruitment, like Kevin was saying, and Cooper has really not yet had a great chance to work with it. So you're seeing like maybe like 60% of what the full form potential is going to be. So that's really exciting. And then they can have this many points after 3 games. I think that really bodes well. I mean, this is as good as advertised. Really, I think we couldn't have asked for a better start.
No, it's been exciting, hasn't it? If anything, whilst we're not quite cohesive, whilst we're not quite there, it's been anything but boring. We're on the edge of our seats watching it. And have you managed to see the games? Is it from where you are?
Oh yeah, they're all the Premier League games are on television here. It's not like the Championship where you had to go like hunting on the internet, and so like it's a totally different experience. Now I have all my friends like who support either Manchester United or Chelsea. They're, hey, good luck Forest. Like they suddenly Forest is on the radar screen. We're in the conversation. It's really it's like night and day, really. I was comparing like being in the Championship like since 1999. It was like we got a sentence of 20 years to life, and we've been sprung, and we're just enjoying life on the outside now. I see the vlogs that Mr. Dore puts out, like you guys traveling on your big day out, and it must be thrilling. I know you were saying last week too that Goodison is one of the few parks you haven't been to. Yeah. You're giving your ticket away or something back in the day, and
yeah.
That's a right proper football ground. I mean, that's old school. I mean, really, like one of the few.
Absolutely. It was an incredible stadium. That all the way down to the songs they were playing before kickoff, it was old school. It was real traditional stuff. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, Chris.
Same here.
So seeing that kind of thing, it really took me back and made me sort of remember when I started watching football and the way the stadiums were, the sort of cantilever stands, what lean over, and so it was a bit hectic in the stands. It was a bit lively because it's all squashed, but absolutely sort of fantastic place and just one for me to tick off. But like I said before, the real excitement of just being there. I mentioned a comment I made in a WhatsApp about I just can't get enough of the Premier League. And then somebody says, well, get used to it. We're not going down. And my initial thought to that was, yes, I agree with that. But right now, it doesn't matter because I just want to enjoy the process, enjoy watching this team evolve into a better team. These players are going to come in. We're going to fall in love with them, like we fell in love with the Jed Spencers and the Sambas and all those kind of players. And we'll fall in love with them again. We'll enjoy it. I just want it to carry on. We've got 2 tough games now. We've got 2 really, really tough games, and I want people to remember what it felt like against West Ham and Everton and Newcastle. And just keep that wave, because if we do get a bit of a stuffing in those games, there'll be some who moan and groan and get fed up. But just remember how far we've come in this short space of time, because it's absolutely fantastic. Wherever you're watching it from, I'm lucky enough to get into the stadium, but I'm sure you watch it and you're like you say, you were having to go around the internet searching for it. And now you've got it at the button.
No, I live vicariously through you guys. I mean, you and this past Saturday, you had a bird's eye view. Those are great seats. You're right there in the action, and Forest scored down on your side too. That had to be fantastic.
Oh, that was an amazing thing. Brennan come over and did the Robin Hood salute. So just before you go, Chris. You've seen the games, like you say. Who's impressed you? Who's really impressed you so far this season?
I like the keeper. I mean, I was a big fan of Samba, like most of us were, but and it didn't work out with him. But we really have a legit bedrock keeper in the back there, and I think he really inspires confidence in the whole side, and that's going to just give us so much stability at the back there. Like not exactly the same thing. It kind of reminds me way back in the day when Forest brought in Peter Shilton. Again, not quite exactly the same thing, but this guy, he could easily be playing for England in the World Cup,
Well, absolutely, and it's interesting you say that, because I mentioned I was lucky enough to have a conversation a private conversation with Kevin Campbell here in Nottingham, and we were talking about the resemblances of Cooper and Brian Clough. I took him to the Brian Clough statue to show him it. He'd never seen it because he speaks fondly of him, and we was comparing Cooper and Clough. And there's little things that really excite me about Cooper in the way Brian Clough did things. You mentioned they're the goalkeeper. So the first thing Clough did, went out and signed Peter Shilton and then built the team off that. Cooper, go out and sort the goalkeeping position out. But there's little things he's saying now as well. Last week he says, we don't worry too much about the opposition. Whilst he's not Brian Clough in an arrogant sort of bullish way, he's got some of those traits that we love about the greatest manager ever.
Well, like you say, you trust the process. And like we've seen it with this guy, and you give him the stuff to work with. And, I don't want to get cocky, but I just really feel good. I feel confident about what's about to come. Okay,
just one quick one. I was just reading the comments there. There's one here, look, from Chapo. Chris on Paxton Harrison, brother of Brennan Arneson, off to Leeds. Is it goodbye for Forest?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if he follows with the same gene pool, I would say yes.
Because this guy at Leeds looks a bit of a good player, doesn't he? Is he in the US national team?
Yeah, he is. He features prominently in our team.
Okay, and just one thing, speaking of the US, I saw Forest did the loan report. Horvath kept a clean sheet this weekend.
Yeah, USA.
So we'll be looking forward to seeing those in the World Cup. But no, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's great, and keep up a good job with the Do Daily podcast. I don't listen to all of them, but I do a couple times a week. I'll listen. It's a good pep talk.
All right, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate the support.
All right, take care, Des. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So that was Chris tuning in from New Jersey. I know he's a big fan of the work Door does, so fantastic to have him on. People are coming in all the time. I'm sure they're getting a bit bored of the Man U game now. Last time I looked, it was 2-0. Please let me know if it's changed. A couple of comments. Said this earlier, 3 games, 4 points, better than most expected. Absolutely. It's points on the board, isn't it? And it's already a third of what Derby got. So that's the first target in most of our minds, isn't it? So looking forward to that. Just to comment on Worrell again. Worrell is still adjusting. I'm sure McKenna and Cook will be backing him. Absolutely. On Worrell, we've spoke about it. We're skirting around it. I've not really given my opinion. Like the guy said earlier, he does tend to start slowly, and he is learning the Premier League like everybody else, isn't he? When we first got promoted, you would have never questioned that that's a position that might be in doubt. But I'm sure everybody's got to play for the place. I'm sure Joe Worrell is embracing the challenge. And if ultimately he comes out of the team, I'm sure he'll fight tooth and nail to get back in. But for now, he's the best option we've got. The back three, Near Carty's injured. It's a massive blow, I feel. He played really well against Newcastle. He played really well against West Ham. People say that Antonio got the better of him. Well, he didn't, did he? He got subbed. He got took off after 65 minutes because it just weren't happening. Antonio was frustrated. Defending's not always about the crunching tackle and the goal line clearance. You have to do some of the dirty stuff. And I think Near Carty did that well. So I think he's going to be a miss. We've, of course, been linked with Willie Bowley from Wolves. They've turned a bid down. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Probably want about 65 million for him. But again, that sounds like a decent option. If we're looking for somebody to come in, and we've bought lots of players already to almost fill a gap, because Premiership experience. I thought Steve Cook, maybe him and Worrell was at odds for the goal, but I thought Steve Cook just gave a bit of reassurance to that back three on Saturday, whilst McKenna and Worrell are experienced themselves. Cook's Premiership experience just shone through a little bit, blocking, getting his head on things. I just thought it was important. Pace is going to be an issue. We all know that pace is an issue, and hopefully they kind of find a way to make it work. Perhaps we might see one or two people coming in, you know, and sort of making a difference in that sense. So if you've got any comments about that, anything on Forest-related topics, DoreOnTour, get your comments in about Everton and other Forest-related topics. Absolutely, I'd love to read them out. Nick says there's 12 minutes to go. I guess it's still 2-0 then. And Mark says here, most people said they're for 6 or 7 points after 6 games. So we're looking good for that so far. I think what's quite kind of important with that, and I'll come on to Kazim in a minute and speak to him about the subjects. We're talking about points tallies, aren't we? But I think sometimes it depends what the fixtures will be. You know, we know the next 2 games, they're almost free hits. They're teams who are not going to be at our end of the table. They're not going to be in the bracket. So if we get any points, it's an absolute bonus. Yes, I would have liked 6 points, 5 points, you know, 7 points maybe from the first few games. But we've got 4, and all we can do is take it on a game-by-game basis. What I will say is it's okay saying Man City and Tottenham are tough. I don't think Bournemouth and Fulham are going to be much easier. You know, they're going to be scrapping and fighting tooth and nail for their points. And they've shown already. Bournemouth was impressive on the opening day against Aston Villa. Whilst Fulham, you know, they're smashing it at the minute, aren't they? Mitrovic has just carried on from last season. We know he's not going to get 42 goals again, but he's a real handful when he's doing the business. So, again, there's no easy games in the Premier League. And on that note, I'll get Kazim in. Are you all right, mate? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
So, thanks for coming on. What is it you want to talk about?
Mainly just the Everton game, really, and potential. I know we've already signed about 16 players, but potential signings as well.
Okay, so where is it you think we might be looking next?
I'm looking at the left side, left wing back mainly. I was reading today, Richards, he might be back in a month's time. I like Toffolo. I think I mentioned it not long ago when I first came on. I do like him, he's a good player, but I still think with Richards being out, we still could do with one more. Apparently we're linked with, I think it's a Spurs left back. Is it Reguilon?
Yeah, Reguilon. He's looked decent at times, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the situation with it. It must have dropped down the pecking order a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what's gone on with that. He looked good when he first came, but left wing back mainly, and centre back as well. Obviously, Niakate is out. I'm not sure for how long. And you mentioned.
Sorry, go on, mate.
No, I'll go for it. Sorry.
I was just going to mention on the centre backs and the defending, and I think next time we maybe in the next window, they'll start looking at reinforcements at the back. You know, we've gone through that stage where we signed the goalkeeper, we moved forward. Seems to be a lot of interest in attacking players right now, just to sort of finalise the summer, if that's the case. But I think in the next windows, 1 or 2 windows, it might be a case that we really look to sort of upgrade those positions. And that's no disrespect. Those guys, I love every single one of them.
Yeah.
You know, they've all given everything to Forest. But again, perhaps not all positions, but one or two might be up for grabs because of that lack of pace. And that's the overriding, kind of been the overriding feature of the conversation, hasn't it? The Premier League is 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. You need players with pace, of course we do. But I like our options at the minute, but obviously we do need a bit of an upgrade. At the minute, I think if we are going to get a centre-back, it'll be more of a stopgap more than anything, if I'm being honest. I know Niakate is coming back, so they might look at a stopgap and then, like you say, maybe upgrade in Jan. So we'll see what happens with that position. But I'm just looking at the left wing-back spot. I like Toffolo, like I said. Richards, he might just take a bit of time to settle back in. If we can get someone like a Reguilon, I'll be happy with that.
I think my personal opinion on Toffolo so far is he does very well going forward, but again, because of the lack of pace throughout the back line, you know, I think they're all going to struggle. You know, what Spence was great at, you know, and sometimes he put them in trouble. You know, he put Worrell in a lot of trouble. But what he was great at was getting back in. You know, getting back into like behind Worrell or getting back and sort of getting in front of the person attacking Worrell. And that's where whilst Williams is a fantastic player, do you know, and I think all round he's better than Spence, I think Worrell's just getting a little bit isolated. People have said he's come up against Anthony Gordon and Alan Saint-Maximin. You know, absolutely, that's a frightening thought, but that's going to be the case every single week.
That's the thing. We're in the Premier League for a reason. You're going to come up against top-level players each week. We've got Spurs this week, and then we've got City next week. It's going to get hard. It's going to be difficult, but you know my thoughts on Spence. You know how many times I mentioned how much I wanted him to stay, but listen, that's happened now. Forget about it. Let's just move on. Like I said, Reguilon would be a brilliant addition if he could get him over the line. Let's see what happens. Cooper said it today. He wants more additions as well as people leaving. So it's just one of them things, really. Let's just see what happens. One question I've got for you, and I was thinking about it today. Let's just take sentiment out of it for the time being. I know we're quite stocked in midfield. I think you know where I'm going with it. But Garner, what are you thinking? Would you get him back? Would you not?
Personally, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think this one's dead in the water. I've no idea other than personal feeling and just the fact that he's not getting a sniff in at Man U, is he? You know, despite tonight, they've not been playing well. And he's sat on the bench a few times. He doesn't look particularly happy. No. There's still rumours that he might come back. You know, I take him because again, whilst we've signed some absolutely amazing players, you know, there's still a bit of a surprise element to what we've signed.
Yeah.
Whilst with Garner, you've got that sort of, I wouldn't say he's a workhorse midfielder, but he does all the roles. You know, he can adapt to the game. He can play deeper. He can spread it about and ping it to a player.
That's the main thing with Garner. The main thing for me watching him for the last 2 seasons, his passing is brilliant. So get him on the ball. Let's see what he can do in the Premier League if we are to sign him. So we'll see what happens with that one. I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and the reason I'm not confident because I have no idea in all reality, but the reason I think because he keeps getting linked with other clubs, doesn't he? He keeps getting linked to other clubs, but nothing's happening. No. Nothing's happening, and it's the same with Morgan Gibbs-White almost.
Yeah,
you know, people were saying, "Oh, that's off, that's not happening," but nothing was happening. You know, it wasn't like we heard Everton come back in at the 11th hour and try to hijack the deal. But it's almost like it had all been set up, you know, for him to come along. And I just get a little bit of a feeling that Garner might be one before the window. I know next week, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about transfers because it's going to be the last dial-in with Des before the window, and it gives people opportunity to come on, of course. But I just don't think that was dead in the water. I had a feeling with Morgan Gibbs-White, nothing more than that. I just sensed that it might be happening. You know, and I was excited by it, and I think you put a player like Garner in who can adapt to different roles. You've got flexibility again, haven't you? Whilst we know Cooper likes to stick to his game, you know, he likes to play to his game plan. He wants people to perform. He wants them to press high. You know, at times we might just need a different kind of player who can get on the football. You know, don't get me wrong, Lingard and Morgan Gibbs-White can definitely do that. But what I saw at the weekend, it was all, whilst I've been saying we up to level, is because they were zipping it into each other, moving around quick. You know, just when you need that guy to put his foot on the ball and look up, which, to be honest, we're struggling at the moment because of the pace. You know, this is where I think we are struggling a little bit. The pace of the game is meaning the likes of O'Brien, whilst he's winning the ball back, he's tenacious, he's getting in, he hasn't got a second on the ball.
No.
So getting it to another Forest player is proving a bit tricky. You know, getting up the pitch is proving a bit tricky. And I think with Garner, he just offers that sort of calmness to get his foot on the ball, have a look, and pick out the right pass. And I think, again, he would add something as an attacking threat.
Yeah, I think it's just mainly, well, it's going to sound mad because of the amount of players we signed, but another 3 players, in my opinion. Centre-back, a wing-back, and a midfielder.
Absolutely, and Warren says there, look, Garner not on the bench tonight, so that's possibly an option. So if anybody's got any comments on Garner, you know, please let us know. Of course, there's a comment here from Chapo Garner. and this Paxton Harrison maybe a few months loan from Olympiacos, Marinakis to sort it out. I'm not quite sure about the Olympiacos link there, but I can kind of see where it's going. Yeah. So thanks for coming on, mate. There's a couple of more people waiting. I appreciate you coming on. Of course, getting behind the channel, and always appreciate the support.
No problem, man. Take care. I'll probably see you Sunday. Take care.
See you then. Take care, mate. So thanks to Kazim, some good points made there, particularly about Garner and the possibility of him coming back. You know, I think, again, we've been excited by a lot of these signings, haven't we? If he was somebody to sort of step back into the ground, step back through the door at the City ground, we'd be excited. And whilst it might not be 100% sort of guaranteed as he was in towards the end of last season, you know, he's definitely somebody I think is worth taking a try on. And it's not about sentiment. You know, it's about good footballers, and that's kind of the level, the thought processes we've got to get to now, isn't it? We've got to forget who and what people can do. And whilst I've sort of stuck up for Joe Worrell a little bit, you know, there is people there saying just to sort of balance things off, Worrell just not cutting it, and he knows it. Do you know it? I'm sure he'll work as hard as anybody. I'm sure he's had to work hard. He's had to work hard to get in the Forest team in the past, you know, and he's had to go out on loan when managers didn't fancy him and things like that. So I'm sure there's an option I'm sure he could sort of up his game and hopefully prove us all wrong, or prove those that are doubting wrong. Just one small thing. A few people have mentioned this. Cafu had a son. Yeah, Cafu had a baby at the weekend. That's why he wasn't in the squad. I do kind of, whilst we congratulate him on that, of course, and I absolutely love this guy. You know, if you don't know, I've been a fan for a long time, and the role he had to play in last season's team, I felt like I kind of picked it out early. I felt like I knew what I was talking about. But anyway, I've been a massive fan of Cafu, but again, he kind of comes out the squad, and you worry for him a little bit, you know, because whilst we know he's not going to necessarily be a starter and a world beater, he's going to struggle to get back in, and I think that just shows how far we've come as well, doesn't it? That shows that the team is massively moved forward. Jack Colback missed a game through COVID, we believe, or illness, something like that, and then he's not in the squad the week after, so it's going to be hard for these guys. Whilst we hope some of them play their part, because that'd be absolutely amazing, wouldn't it? We hope they get some part at least. Just one person we haven't spoke about much. There's a comment here, and I really want to talk about it. I don't know what the guys waiting think about it, but we look way better when Yates come on. I thought Yatesy did brilliant. You know, last week I said he's kind of undervalued a little bit as a footballer. We know he works hard. We know he gets stuck in. You know, we know he does what he does. But for me, he looked fit. He looked really fit on Saturday. He was getting up and down. You know, it was almost as if he took some control of the game. Mangala had dominated that midfield. Mangala had been brilliant, and he's a different kind of footballer. But it was nice to see somebody with fresh legs getting into the penalty box. We spoke about that chance that he missed. You know, it was a tough one. As Kev said, it was really, really tough. But he was the one who shot for the goal. He had a shot a few minutes before that as well, which was deflected wide. And that's what we want to see from Yatesy, isn't it? When he's in the goals, when he's making an impact like that, he's invaluable to Forest. You know, of course, he's one of our own and we get behind him. But there's been times when people have got on his case. And I think just coming back into his first game, straight into the pace of it, we've spoken a lot about adjusting to the pace. But for me, Yatesy did what Yatesy always does. He looked supremely fit. You know, he looked right on his game, and to say he's coming back from injury as well, you know, for him to be involved as much as he was a pleasant surprise, if I'm honest. After what we'd seen with Mangala, I was thinking, oh God, is this where the game's going to go the other way? It was almost like Yates, come on, Morgan Gibbs-White, come on, you know, and we had this whole new attacking threat. And again, talking about that stepping up, it was really interesting. And just before we get Joe in, just a couple of comments. Dino, don't need Garner now. We need to spend money on another centre-half and left-back, both with pace. Who's to say we ain't got money for all of them? They seem to be signing who they want. A comment here from Warren. Every season, so-called fans put him down, and every season he steps up. Look, class on Saturday. Absolutely. He looked a lot of class. He looked very good, and looks like he can be an asset to the team, and that's all we ask of him, really, isn't it? Just a comment here. I want to see more of Yates and O'Brien and Yates and Mangala partnership. The Yates and Mangala pair could be quite spicy. Absolutely. If you let them do the donkey work in midfield and let the flair players do their thing, we could have one hell of a team. So that'd be really interesting. Anthony says Yates is key and needs to start. Mark says finish 2-1. We're still above them as well as Liverpool. Well, that can't be too bad, can it? So we've got good company. And there's a question here, Rebel City Red, evening all. I think people are starting to come in after the Man U game, aren't they? Somebody said Dore would hung me out to dry a little bit here, but going up against Monday Night Football, you'd rather listen to me than Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher whine on it anyway, wouldn't you? So if you are coming in, please give this episode a thumbs up. We'd really, really appreciate the support. Of course, subscribe to DoreOnTour. Trying to get into 10K, subscribe to Do Daily, and please add your comments. We've been talking about Everton at the weekend, the players that played, the start to the season. What are your thoughts? Still time to get involved if you'd like to. Please hit that link to come on the show. But I'm going to get the next guest in. Evening, Joe.
Evening, Des. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I don't think we've ever actually spoke, have we?
No, this is definitely the first time. I've tuned in pretty much every Monday, and I've always kind of sat in this chair and thought, do I want to come on? Do I just want to let those other people come on? I think it's been a brilliant chance for a lot of fresh faces to kind of get involved and all have their say. So I think it's been a great show every Monday, and I thought, yep, I'll definitely get involved this week. So yeah, happy to be on.
Well, thank you for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. Like Nick says, hit that like button now, folks. So what is it you want to talk about, Joe? Is it the weekend's game?
Yeah, so kind of the weekend's game, all three Premier League games as a whole, I think has been really positive, and we've kind of spoken about it when we've done our own streams. We've kind of seen a massive growth and development already, but just in the first three games that we've played. And I think it's coming out of the game, I understood a lot of people's disappointment, thinking, oh, it felt like 2 points dropped, especially taking the lead such late on. But everybody went into that game, would have been happy with a draw, especially away from home. We know that those kind of points at the end of the season are going to be invaluable when they're not won at the City ground. So everyone was happy, I think, in the end with a point. And the way that we're playing now, we look like we are not just here to make up the numbers. We're competing, and we will probably compete with the rest of the league, just as you've seen a lot of teams have done. It doesn't look like one of those seasons where there's like a clear out and out couple of favourites who are just going to storm the league, apart from maybe Arsenal, who've really hit the ground running. I think we've seen we played against Newcastle. They didn't really give us a right pumping. It took them until late into the second half with an absolute thunderbolt from a centre back to break the deadlock, and then play Man City and have a 6-goal thriller. So I think everyone should just keep on going with the positivity and look forward to every single game and think, yeah, maybe we can get something from that game. And I think we're starting to see that now with a bit of belief going into the Spurs at the weekend.
Yeah, I think it's important what you said, sort of what you started with when you said coming out of Everton. It was a measure of how far we've come, hasn't it? Because there was that disappointment. I do a little bit of a summary for a football website on Twitter and try and sum the game up within about a minute. And I couldn't help but, when I started trying to film it, I was kind of disappointed. And then I thought, crack out of this. We've come a long way. We've come so far. I wasn't critical. I was just a bit disappointed. But it's okay to be that, because when you listen to Steve Cooper, and when you watched him walk over to the fans, it was almost apologetic. You could see, whilst he wasn't necessarily fuming, it was like, oh, do you know what I mean? It was like, that was an opportunity. And he was almost apologetic in the sense that we could have held on there. And I think that's what, as fans, we've got to realise, it's okay to be disappointed in the team, but that don't have to turn into sort of sheer anger and frustration. We've seen a bit of it with some of the players. But like you said, over the 3 games, we've not really been completely out of it. Do you know, the
No.
Newcastle game was tough. Do you know?
Yeah, as soon as that first goal went in against Newcastle, I kind of thought, yeah, there's going to take a lot to kind of cling on now. We're going to have to kind of give it a bit of a Hail Mary. If we do manage to snatch a goal, great. But I wasn't surprised when the second goal then went in because we were chasing the game. And then other than that, once that goal went in, every other minute before that, as well as the both games that have then been subsequently played, we've been well in the game. We didn't look like we've got, as much as some of the other fans and pundits might want to say, we've kind of got extremely lucky and have kind of outperformed what the final score said. But a game's not won on how other stats are measured. It's on how the final score. If Dean Henderson has to keep us in every single game that we play in, then that's fine by me. We have got Man United's best goalkeeper, and I will die on that sword.
Exactly. It's not a game of Football Manager, is it? There's more than one way to win a football match, and sometimes defending and why didn't you look is all part of the game. Because at the end of the day, it's whoever sticks the ball in the back of the net the most times.
Yeah,
and so far we've managed to do it first, which is important.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's really crucial that we get the first goal. Everybody's been talking about the home form. And we know when we play teams like West Ham, probably Bournemouth, Fulham, we've got to go hard early. You know, we've got to make sure we stamp on the game. Against West Ham, I really wanted us to take hold of things, and we did. You know, we penned them back, and it took them a long time to get going. And then when they did get going, they still had to be aware of what we was doing at the other end. And so I think it's key we do that. In the away games, we have struggled at the start. But in time, you know, with the team gelling, God forbid we talk about the team gelling because everyone says it's going to take forever, but it is going to take a little bit of time to gel. But it doesn't mean it's not happening already. This is where the pundits are getting it wrong. Everyone's getting frustrated with the pundits, and Sky said this, and Gary Neville said that, and Martin Keown said this. I don't really care because when we get there, we know what this manager does. We know how he can mould a team. Yeah. And when we get there, it's going to show them all that they don't really know what they're talking about, isn't it?
No. And I think we're already starting to see glimpses of gelling now, and maybe not between like the entire 11. But if you look at the first game of the season at Newcastle, it looked like a group of individuals that were all playing. They were all playing their own game. And then as soon as the next week, you start to see so many balls going through to Taiwo, and they adapted to be able to play his game instead of what kind of role we were hoping he was going to fill by taking Keenan Davis's shoes on. We started to adapt our game, and then you saw so many chances go through to him, and then he finally got that little bit of luck to get the goal. And then bring on this week, we are sitting around the edge of the box. It almost looked like everyone was too afraid to take a shot on until we bring Yatesy on, who then just has that spur of the moment, I'm going to hit it, and that then sets up that goal. So we're starting to find our game now, and I think as soon as everyone starts to properly gel together as a team, I can't wait to see some of the stuff that we're going to be able to do, especially with so many of the attacking talents that we've brought in. And I think one point that I would also like to think of, which could be trialed maybe in the game tomorrow, is possibly changes of formation from sitting with 3 at the back and relying on 3 centre backs to kind of hold it back. Can you imagine if we had an 11 that had featured a Wanye, Lingard, Brennan Johnson, and Morgan Gibbs-White in that attacking four? And then even if you then take Lingard out, and then you've got Emmanuel Dennis who can come on a wing somewhere, then you've got Sam Sturridge who can replace up top. We're going to be a force to be reckoned with if we can start clicking with all those attacking players. And then we've already seen how much our defence can keep us in games and keep us clinging on to draws or holding out for a clean sheet to get the 3 points. I think once we kind of get that attack going and we start getting some more goals on the board, we're going to be good, really good.
I think so, and I think when it does gel in the way Cooper wants it to, because he's talking about it, I think we're going to be sort of a force. I've said it several times tonight. When Morgan Gibbs-White come on, the attacking intent went to another level. But what I've been saying all summer, and this is, we get accused of being impatient. I've spoke when everybody's been talking about transfers and who we're going to get. I've been saying enjoy the process, and people have been like, "Oh, ball off, old man." Do you know what I mean? But the reality is, this is what football is: seeing your team improve week on week, and we're seeing that.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing this team improve, and that's what's making us fall in love with the Premier League and the team, the new team. This is something else I've said in other places. We fell in love with last year's team. You know, we're getting over them because this year, you know, we've got the mangality. Is the term I've seen on Twitter. I love it. You know, it's fantastic, and you see the guys. I mentioned it earlier, all tweeting, like commenting on each other's Instagram and things like that. That's team spirit. What we're told is not there. You know, when you've got that, you can go a long way. I remember watching. You're probably a bit too old for you, mate, but I remember watching a Republic of Ireland team under Jack Charlton, and they had like second-rate players, but he got them to World Cup quarterfinals because he got a team going, and they all fought for it. It was all actually English, you know, but he got players who he made Irish and made them believe something that they probably wasn't. And again, we've got a manager who these players believe in. Forget about the fee. Forget about Morgan Gibbs-White as a prospect and the ability he's got. He wanted to come and play for Steve Cooper.
Yeah.
That says so much. So already you've got somebody who wants to be there. You know, how many players have wanted to come and play for Forest? You know, we've had so many who've just come along and earned the money and gone away. But this guy is guaranteed to play at Wolves or play a big part at Wolves, and now he wants to come and play for Forest. Dean Henderson, you know, wants to come and play for Forest.
Yeah.
Jesse Lingard's choose Forest over West Ham. Whatever the reasons are, you know, they still wanted to come here. And I think that's so important, and that's where the pundits are forgetting about it. We're seeing it, you know, up front, game on game, we're seeing that little bit of improvement. And all you want as a football fan is to see your team get that little bit better or that little bit more consistent over time. And once that consistency and that cohesion tends to be the word of the night, once that cohesion kind of sets in, I think we're going to really, really surprise a couple of teams here and show them what Nottingham Forest are all about.
Yeah, definitely. I completely echo all of those thoughts. I think, especially with all these news, I've seen that Nick's also commented in saying that Garner's very interested in all Forest business. And we've had some chats on other streams where we've kind of said, would we want to get him in or would he just kind of be surplus? And I think what we've seen from Ryan Yates, where we all thought, oh, he's not going to be fit to be able to start for Forest, and then he comes on and he did that injection that we really needed in that game to get that goal. And then all of a sudden now we're all saying he should be starting. So it's that competition that's now going to drive all of these players on. And yes, we would like to have him back for some sentimentality reasons, but I think he also knows how to play with our team. He likes the manager. He clearly played very well under him. He coached him very well. And I think if we were trying to play the long game with him, if we were able to stay up for a couple of seasons and he was able to develop with our team, be a super sub in a couple of games, be a starter in a few others, we could really see him blossom into one of the greatest talents that we've had at our club for a long time. And I think it'd be so exciting to see that. And the fact that we're able to do that now with these players and not just be the team that they send him on for a couple of loans just to try and get some experience, we can now bring these players in and make them our own and make them our cult heroes, I think is really exciting, especially for someone of my age who's not really been able to see that before. We're now starting to get our own cult heroes. And I think Garner could be one of those. If we brought him in, he was able to start adding what he added last year and really build on the talents that we all know that he's got naturally. I can't wait for it, and I absolutely love it.
Absolutely, mate. Just one more question before we go, but I'm just going to read a couple of comments because I'm getting a bit of a ticking off. Owen says, hey, there's enough of that English-Irish stuff. And Johnny says, way out and at all, would beg to differ. It wasn't actually meant as a criticism. I know it was a backhanded compliment, but it was just how much you could get from a team. What a team that was. I've actually got a little bit of Irish in me, and I love supporting that team. You know, so they were fantastic. So I really didn't mean any offence to the Irish viewers there. This is an interesting one. I'm probably going to embarrass him a little bit. Tinder Express, where's Dore? Probably on Tinder. Probably not even watching anymore. Mark says, Garner will be a Forest player again in time. Let's all hope so, because we know he can be a real asset. And just another quick comment here. Rebel City Red says, very early doors, but who would have thought going into our 4th Premier League game, we're sitting above Man United and Liverpool. I kind of read that purposely, Joe, because I'm going to ask you about the next couple of games. What do you expect? How do you see it going?
I think it has kind of been a point that's raised already where they almost seem a little bit like a free, and I do kind of echo those points, especially the game that we're going to go to at Man City. We've kind of seen how they can just almost score at will against any team, really. So I think that one is really going to be a test of our mettle to be able to try and see what we can do in that. But I think, especially since we've come out with 4 points in 3 games, I think we'd all be really happy with that going into those first 3. So that then gives us that little bit of a buffer, especially with some of the other teams that are still below us, still not able to get any wins yet. Some teams not able to get any points. Some teams not able to get any goals. So we've kind of almost bought ourselves a little bit of a buffer to really go at these games, throw everything that we've got at it. And if the worst thing that comes out of it is the team gels even more, then I think we can all still be really happy with that. And then look forward to some of the games that then follow on from that, such as Bournemouth. I think that's where we can then start to really play the way that we want to again and try and get those wins. So we'll take a lot of lessons from the next games. I'd be happy with a point from the next 2, if I'm perfectly honest. Anything that we take from that is a bonus. And I will keep on saying that, especially every away game. Point I'll obviously use a bonus, but these next 2, just to draw, try and stay in the game, 1 goal, 2 goals max, maybe. If we can do that, then I'd be really happy.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with all that. Good points raised there, mate. And I think these are the games we're in the Premier League for, aren't we? Mm-hmm. This is why we want to be here every week. Let's face it, we don't want Bournemouth and Fulham every week, even though they're winnable and exciting within their own little right. You know, we're here to play Kane and Ireland, and if, these are the ones. If we get a win, you know, these are like memories forever. You know, if we beat Man City I was going to say Main Road then, at that stadium. Again, show my age. If we win in these places, it's memories you keep for forever. Do you know the away games? I remember when Forest got relegated back in 98, 99. We beat Newcastle in the FA Cup. One of my favourite away games ever. And Ian Woe scored a couple, and you remember them. So this is what we're here for, and this is why I'm kind of. I don't know why, but I'm urging everybody out there to just enjoy it. Make sure the City ground is exactly the same. You know, keep singing Forest of Magic on and off the pitch. That seems to be the one that gets everyone going. And I think it's important that we just go into these games and again, enjoy the process. You know, make sure we do our bit as supporters, and hopefully it can just spur the guys on to surprise 1 or 2 along the way.
Yeah, I think, again, going back on that point that you just made really well there, I think if we kind of rule out the playoffs, both the semi-final games and the final, and then maybe a couple of outliers, I'd say if you asked the Forest fans what games they remember the most or were most happy about last season, it wouldn't be beating teams 3-0, 4-0 that were kind of championship level fighting down at the bottom. It would be the FA Cup run that we went on, where we surprised all of these teams that were kind of written off as, oh, they're just a championship squad versus a Premier League. It doesn't matter if it's at the City ground. They're just going to run all over them, even if they start some of their subs and kind of reserves. Those were the games that we kind of came out of that and thinking, wow, we are actually quite a good footballing team. And that then drove us on throughout those amazing months in March, April, May, where we just looked unbeatable. So I know going into these games are going to be tough, but I completely agree. If we get something out of these, they're going to be memories that are going to go with us for years.
Absolutely. And on that note, mate, I've had a couple of comments here. A couple of going to beat Spurs 2-0. We can beat Spurs. Some optimism there. You know, I wish I shared it in that way, but I'm excited for the game nonetheless. And thanks for coming on, Joe. Really appreciate you coming on and some great points made.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much for having me on. And I can't wait to hopefully meet some people this weekend. I was actually going to be able to make it to the game on Sunday. So Really looking forward to it, and would love to be able to meet yourself, Dore, and some of the other guys that I've kind of spoken to on here. So thanks again for your time tonight. And
we're always around the club shop.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, I'll definitely make sure I'm out nice and early on Sunday, and I'd love to bump into you and have a pint and a nice chat.
Absolutely, mate. And again, same to everyone. Cheers for coming on, Joe. Hopefully,
no worries. Thank you very much for having me on, and have a good evening, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Just a few comments on the back of that. Thanks to Joe. Good guy, Joe from Southpaw Red. There was a comment there. Again, I was talking about those games, what we remember forever. Remember the Tyson goal at Man City against the poor Mark Hughes team. Here's an interesting one. Gary Crosby goal versus City when he headed the ball out the keeper's hand and tapped it in. That's a iconic moment in Forest history, isn't it? You know, that goal, and when you see it bouncing around Twitter, you can't help but watch it about 100 times. Comment here. Good evening, bro, from Mark. There was just on those Spurs comments, it just reminded me of a song we used to sing when we were in the top league. We always beat Tottenham, so guaranteed 3 points this weekend because we always beat Tottenham. Pity we ain't got Ian Wone banging goals in for us. Nice comment there from Tom. Thank you. Loving these lives, Des. Thank you. Again, there's still more people coming in after that Man United game. If you've got anything to add to the comments, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I'm going to get on to Christian now. He's been waiting patiently. Hopefully he's still awake. Evening, Christian.
How you doing? All right, mate?
I'm good. You've been waiting there right since the beginning. I really appreciate you sticking with it. So
no, it's all right.
So yeah, what's your thoughts on Forest at the minute?
Yeah, I'm happy with the 4 points that we got. You know, there were a lot of doubters, weren't there, out there, you know, in the press and everything. Yeah, I'm happy with the 4. I think we got to look at sort of the Man City game. It's a free game. Do you know what I mean? Because we're not going to be expecting to get anything out of it. So we've got to look at that game and just try and push the boundaries a little bit, take the game to them, not be afraid. If they give us a bit of a beating, it's we was expecting it anyway, weren't we, to be fair?
Absolutely. Peter says here we can beat Spurs and draw with Man City. I think every single Forest fan in the world would take that right now. But no, yeah, we just got to turn up, haven't we? You know, you never know.
Yeah. I mean, looking at I never got to see the match on against Everton, but I watched all the highlights and everything. And looking back on the goal, I was speaking to my mate today. He's a Wolves fan, and he said, "You don't defend that high in the Premier." He says, especially when you're trying to close a game out. He says, "We found out the hard way," he said, and you know, he said, and you will as well. Looking at the Newcastle game as well, I thought we needed to get beat against Newcastle because it was like, welcome to the Premier. You ain't going to have it as easy as last season, you know what I mean? So, and I think it was, you know, they give us a bit of a lesson in football. I watched them yesterday against Man City, and they look a good team. So when you look at what we've sort of achieved over the last 3 games, Newcastle we lost, yeah. West Ham, you know, they were big hitters last season, they were. Got 3 points out of them. And then Everton, it's a bit disappointing not to get the 3 points, but you live and learn, don't you, I suppose? So,
well, absolutely. And again, we've got to, as fans, we've got to be a little bit patient, haven't we? There's going to be mistakes. You know, the thing I ask myself, you know, do we want Joe Worrell to succeed, or do we want Joe Worrell to fail, or not just Joe Worrell? I'm picking on him there, but anyone who was there last season, we'd love that team to come up, be amazing, you know, take it to them. But we've got to be patient as well, because it's not going to happen overnight. You know, there's lots going off, there's lots of transfers in, and we're all excited about the signings and what they can bring to the team. but mistakes are going to happen. The pure pace of the game, do you know, teams are going to get beat. Do you know, I can understand now why you're seeing results like Palace won, Liverpool won, or, you know, United getting stuff 4-0 at Brentford. Because if you are not on your game against any team, you're going to get found out. You're going to get caught out. Not necessarily found out, but you're just going to get caught out because these people are only human beings, and the pace of it is off the scale. It's absolutely off the scale, isn't it?
I mean, I've just watched the Man U Liverpool game tonight, and you watch Liverpool, they're a good team, they're a good side. But Man U like took the game to them tonight. You know, they and they got the result, didn't they? You know, they managed to hold on right to the end. And you look at, you know, sort of performances like that, and there's so much competition in this league. It's not like you've got it's not like you've. I mean, yeah, we've always had that sort of top 6 in the Premiership. You know, this is what could happen, and a lot of that's all down to squad depth. And I think the quality we've got in our squad now, in the depth of what we can bring on, is brilliant. The only thing that sort of I was disappointed about was the injury to Niakate, because I think that's a massive loss, to be honest with you.
I think so too, Christian. It's not been spoken about too much this evening, you know, but I think that's absolutely huge. It was one of the kind of headlines I put on the promotion for tonight's show, because I thought there'd be more conversation about that. I just think he had started well. I think we've underestimated the impact he'd had in those first couple of games. Whilst there's one or two things he's done which weren't brilliant, but again, everybody's learning, aren't they, on the job? What he did do, like he did a job on Antonio, and against Newcastle, you know, they were getting pulled all over the place, and he wasn't. I'm not excluding him from that, but he was absolutely fantastic. There's a comment here from Ian. The job Nakata did, Antonio, was fantastic. Looks a proper player. And again, he just getting stuck in, wasn't he? And I've spoke about Chiarte, you know, someone else, and it's just that little bit of now sometimes, you know, of how to play these players and how to sort of adapt your game a little bit. And I think what impressed me with Niakate was the difference in the game he had to play against Newcastle to what he had to do against Antonio. He basically went man-to-man on Antonio. Whereas Newcastle was a lot more sort of technical and positioning-wise. He had to be in the right place. He got stuck in, you know. But the one against Antonio was a lot of pulling and tussling, and, you know, you've got to be careful in that sense as well. So it just, to me, looked like somebody who, in a couple of games, looked like a real shining light in a position where people are starting to question.
Yeah, I mean, when I listened to the game on Saturday against Everton, because 5 Live have been playing the last couple of games, so the games I've missed, I've managed to listen to them. Newcastle, it was like we were just played off the park pretty much the whole game, to be fair. But the one name you kept hearing crop up was Niakate. He's in there, he's doing this, and I thought he's having a decent game. It's a bit of a shame that, you know, some of the other lads weren't. But one thing I did sort of gather from that game was the midfield at the time was just wide open, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden, we bring on Mangala and then obviously West Ham. When he played against West Ham, I thought he was absolutely amazing. I just thought, what a signing he is, isn't he, Mangala? He's another one. He's a beast, isn't he, in midfield? He doesn't look very big, but he's strong and he literally holds off. You know, players like Antonio, you know, who are super strong players, super fit. He's just getting in the face, you know, and stopping things happening for him, you know. So
Well, I mentioned earlier there was one he got done by Iwobi, a bit of skill where Iwobi flicked the ball over his head and it was a good piece of work by Iwobi, and it made him look a bit silly. But after that because that was the battle on Saturday, for whatever was going on at either end, it was in midfield. It was a real battle between Iwobi and Mangala, O'Brien. They had is it Davis, the blonde-haired guy who's been there for a long time. You know, and I felt that's where the game would be won and lost. And Forest, after that initial opening period and that bit of skill I've just spoke about by Iwobi, I think Mangala learned just to stand off him just a couple of yards. And then every single time he nailed him. He got the ball, he played it forward, which is important to know. You don't necessarily see that from midfield players sometimes these days. And again, it just puts you on the front foot. You know, someone's in there stamping their authority. And again, every Forest fan that walked out that ground was talking about Mangala. You know, he was absolutely brilliant in what he did for us. Because without him, you know, it would have gone the same way as Newcastle, I felt. And again, he'd only just come in at Newcastle, and you saw in little patches that the job he did. And I think, again, he's so important. He went off injured, so hopefully it seems like the prognosis is a lot better with Mangala than it is Niakate. But hopefully he's ready and available.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's happened with Niakate, because it looked like he'd gone off with hamstring, but I heard today, or read today, that it was like a thigh problem or something.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I was trying to do a little bit of research for this to find out what had happened, and there's no real, unless I've missed it, there is no real prognosis on what's happened. You know, there's no real identification of what the issue is. So I fear for that one. I fear that, and especially as they're looking at potential replacements, I fear that could be one that's a long, long time. I'm hoping not, because it's sad for the player as well, isn't it? You know, he's come into the club, and you know, big move from Germany, and it's just really sad if he's going to be out for a long time, but hopefully not. Just to sort of finish off, mate, there's a comment there, and we've not spoke about it at all, but it'd be a good way to finish. Let's see how the boys roll out against Grimsby. We'll see. Good squad. How do you think that's going to... So who do you think is going to be in the team? I'm going tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. How do you think we'll approach that game?
Well, me personally, if I was the manager, I wouldn't play any of the players that played on Saturday. I'd literally completely refresh the team, because we need players like Dennis, Freuler, I'd say Moyton as well, and get Yates out there, because he hasn't had much pre-season. And you've got to give these guys a chance to play. You know, they've come here to play football, a lot of these new signings. And Kayate, is it? Get him on there, you know, and get him in the mix tomorrow. I mean, they need game time, don't they? And the more game time they get, whether it's in a, you know, cup competition, whatever, it gives the other guys who played Saturday and the week before, you just need to give them a little bit of a rest. It's hard going in at the Premier. I think I've seen some the other day where Leeds, the weekend, I think they ran 11 more miles than the Chelsea players or something like that. You know, so they go through a lot of hard work, don't they, these players? So you've just got to give them a bit of a break, haven't you? Because it's a long season at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and I tell you why I tend to agree with you now, because I've always been one like, let's have a cup run. You know, I want us to win every single game. I think with Forest we could beat Grimsby, but now I've seen the pace of the Premier League, I'm kind of coming around to why these players possibly need resting in cup games. You know, I hate the thing that the Premier League changed 11 players for the FA Cup ties. You know, again, I mentioned earlier I'm a traditionalist, but now I'm seeing the pace of the Premier League and the way games are played. You can understand why teams do it, because you can't play players, and we've seen late in games already. We've seen Niakate limp out of games. We've seen Mangala limp out of game. You know, that suggests a bit of fatigue, and when you get fatigue, you get injured. You know, it suggests that players are. We know they're still adapting. We know there's still new players into the league. You know, top players that might coming from other leagues. It's going to be hard. So I can quite understand now why there might be a lot of changes. And I think about it. You know, whilst you were talking, I was thinking, who could possibly play? You know, what is astonishing now? Give it 2 seconds to think about it when you come off this. You could actually put an 11 out there that is miles better than the team we put out last season. You know, if we play Dennis,
I thought you was going to say then we could put 11 out there that would easily beat Grimsby, right? But you could put 11 out there tomorrow night, or is it tomorrow night or Wednesday night, that could go and win that playoff final that we played in at Wembley.
That's what I was kind of getting to, yeah.
And you look at the sort of depth that we've got in the team, and I mean, I personally think Mighton, they ought to send him out on loan. I think it'd do him a world of good. Somewhere like Coventry or Millwall, someone like that, West Brom. Because I think he ain't going to get much game time at Forest this year. I do like him. I do like him. I think he needs to go to a team and someone needs to nurture him a little bit. He's like a bit of an headless chicken at the minute, so he just needs to be nurtured, learn the game a little bit more. And I think when he comes back, I think he'll be a cracking player. I mean, look what it did for Brennan Johnson. But there's definitely gonna. I think I can't see many players that played Saturday playing against Grimsby, to be honest with you. Absolutely. But that's a good thing, because I think we need to get like NSC needs to get out in goal, doesn't he? Play a match, and Mbaso as well. Get him in defence.
I'm glad you mentioned him, because I think that's an interesting one, isn't it? With all these injury issues, you know, with Neil Carter's injury issue and talk of Worrell and McKenna and adapting and this and that, it'll be interesting. I'd imagine Bianconi will play, and then be so. And it'll be interesting to see those two around some of the other players, you know, who might end up first team players. For Dennis, you know, Yatesy maybe. It'd be really interesting to say that. What is interesting as well about what you said about loans, there's a few comments here that Arts are looking at Mighton maybe. That'd be an interesting move going up to Scotland. Another one here from Nick, Arts, Blackpool and Ipswich. I do at Ipswich over the weekend. Couple of suggestions for team. Big Sam and Dennis up front, maybe. Foyer and Yates in midfield. Wow, that's a fine thought for Grimsby, isn't it? And then there's a comment here, Southport, it has to be Monday night with Des for the rest of the season. Absolutely, guys. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. But before I sort of wrap up, thanks for coming on, Christian. Really appreciate it, mate. Great to catch up with you.
Okay, mate. Really, just a quick one.
Go on.
Morgan Gibbs-White is possibly the best signing since Stan Collymore.
I'm as excited as when we signed Stan Collymore.
He looks absolutely fantastic, doesn't he? He was on fire, he was Saturday.
Absolutely. So hopefully, I can imagine he's going straight into the team on Sunday. I don't see any doubt about that. You know, whilst we know Cooper loves the old team ethic and what it does, he's been pretty clear. He's been after this guy for a while, isn't it? And he knows what he can bring to the team.
The thing is, though, you need to. I think one of the guys mentioned it earlier that you need to play Gibbs White on the left, Lingard, Brennan, and Iwanyi up front. But then, what do you do with the formation to get those guys sort of playing together? Because as soon as you come on the radio, when I was listening to it, they were like, they were just going about Morgan Gibbs White, and all of a sudden we were just attacking. It brought on Lingard's game. Brennan, it looked like it opened Brennan Johnson up. And I just thought, what an unbelievable player, and he only did about 15 minutes of the game, something like that.
Absolutely. What a cameo for his debut, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of it. Just a couple of comments here. Morgan Gibbs White will tear a new one off Spurs on Sunday. Let's hope so. Keep some of the strikers quiet. Nick says, have you seen Colin Moore's comparison tweet to him and Morgan Gibbs White? It did almost bring a tear to my eye, that one. Remembering those years. And Brian, an old friend of mine actually, thanks for tuning in, Brian. Beat Spurs 3-0 on Sunday, then we go above them. Can't see a problem really. Always the optimist, Brian. Thanks for the comment. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on, Christian. Really appreciate you supporting this particular episode. And like I say, have a great evening. Enjoy the week, and we go again tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and great show, by the way.
Cheers, mate. I'm just trying my best. I'm trying my best. Like Forest, the cohesion's not quite there, but I'll get there in the end.
Okay, mate.
Cheers, Christian.
See you then.
Thanks. Another great guy, Christian. Some great points there about several things, including Morgan Gibbs White. Of course, we're all really, really excited. Not quite sure he's going to make the team tomorrow. Probably sit that one out with a few of the players that have been playing. But I'm really looking forward to Grimsby. Again, whilst it's a cup game, it's probably not going to be at the intensity of what we've seen so far. I think it's fascinating to see who will line up in these games. Again, the guys there have been speaking about in the comments, perhaps Yates and Foyer might make his debut. So again, that's worth it for me, especially. I can't wait to sort of see him play. He's been touted as one of the real stars, along with Gibbs White and one or two others. I'd like to see Dennis get a game as well, and then see where they take that from over the weekend. It's really exciting right now to be a Forest fan, isn't it? I'm really sort of every single game. We don't want to miss it. I've said it already. Excuse the pun. Just can't get enough of it. Really looking forward to every single game. And this is a comment that pricked my ears up. Get there early tomorrow, Des, and have time to go to Steele's restaurant for some fish and chips. Well, it's funny you say that, Paul, because I'm actually going with a friend, but I'm meeting him there because I'm getting an earlier train. I'm lucky enough to finish work earlier than he does, and I'm going especially for some fish and chips and a walk and to do my vlog on my own channel. So I'll definitely look that up and feedback how that went. So looking forward to fish and chips at Steele's restaurant. Of course, Forest play tomorrow. There'll be a vlog from Dore himself. After that, as always, I'm sure there'll be some reaction as well, and plenty of shows throughout the week. It's absolutely brilliant to have everybody's support, including this guy himself. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight's show with Des. Really appreciate it. It's tough going up against probably one of the biggest derbies in the world, but there's been a fair few people in. If you're watching at another time, don't forget to give this episode a thumbs up. Add your comments in. We'd love to sort of feedback. I'll definitely be reading through those and responding if it makes any sense. That would be brilliant. And of course, subscribe to the channel. But all we're trying to do here is keep the conversation positive about Forest. Really, really enjoy doing it myself. Something I'm new to, dipping my toe in it, as I've alluded to, like Forest are in the Premier League. and I really, really enjoy it. It's great to talk to other Forest fans about the things that that really sort of make us happy, make us tick. It's brilliant to be a Forest fan right now, isn't it? You know, some nice comments coming in. Warren says, great steam, Des. Derek says, thanks for hosting, Des. You know, and Claire says, another great stream. If anybody wants to come on in future weeks, you know, please just hit that link at the top of the chat. We'll have anybody on. Do you know, it's that kind of show. It's your thoughts, whatever's going on at Forest. Of course, we talk about the game beforehand. There'll be plenty to talk about again next week. Hopefully, we're through in the cup. We're in the draw for the whatever round it is. I can't even remember where we start these days. It used to be round 1, but we don't have to play in that anymore. And then 3 points against Spurs. Shut Harry Kane and the rest of them up, you know, and hopefully really get a season up and running. Get everybody back on it, you know, excited. Once again, I urge everybody at the City Ground on Sunday, let's do what we do best. You know, it's been brilliant. It's been amazing. Let's not get on the team on the case of them if it don't quite go our way. You know, because we've got too much to be excited about when these players gel, like the pundits say. You know, but they're thinking it's going to happen next May. We know it's going to be a lot sooner than that. So get behind the lads. Get behind DoreOnTour, get behind what we're trying to do here. Thanks for all the support. I'll see you next week on Dialing with Des, week 4. Catch up with Dore throughout the week on everything he does. And check out that vlog from Everton. If you've not seen it yet, and you know a little bit about Dore, you know he screams like a girl. So it's worth it just for the celebration. Until then, guys, have a great evening. Thanks for everything. Good evening. You Reds.